All right, what's up, everybody? I am super excited today because I've got a real treat for you, and really, just excited to have a really good friend of mine on today. But before we get started, I just want to encourage you to keep moving forward, keep doing what you need to do. I know things seem to be a little bit crazy right now, but the thing is I always stay focused on the real positive stuff, and I know that what we're going to share with you in this interview with a really, really good friend of mine is really going to benefit you a lot. So let me give you a quick synopsis of who this is before I bring him out. I met this guy a few years ago at an event. And at this event, I was really captivated by how well he spoke. He was actually on stage. He was one of the speakers. And I was really kind of mesmerized by the way he spoke because he was so powerful with his story, which you're going to hear in just a second, which to me is really one of the most powerful stories that your past does not equal your future. And what happens is many of us define going forward with our business or anything in life, really. It doesn't matter. It could be spiritual life, could be business life, whatever it is. We define ourselves by our past. And this guy has done such an amazing job taking something that really was rough in his life and turned it around and made it into an incredible story of redemption, an incredible story of inspiring others. And so I just want to bring out my good friend, international speaker, author, coach, you name it, Mr. Steve Hopper. What's up, man? I'm excited to have you here, brother.
Hey, Mark, I'm so excited to be here. Hey, everybody. It's a pleasure to be interviewed by this guy right here because I know he needs no introduction, obviously, but Mark Harbert, you're the bomb, dude. Meeting you has been an absolute blessing in my life. You've always been that person I've been able to reach out to, man, if I needed some advice or needed some encouragement. And it's so important to have people like that in your life. And I'm just blessed to have you as one of those people. And your audience is blessed to have you as well, or to be connected to you, because you bring so much to the table for everybody, man. So thanks for having me, dude.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And, for me, it's like feelings likewise. I mean, you've been a big inspiration for me, just meeting you over the last couple years. And what's interesting is you and I met at a live event in St. Petersburg. And that was the first time I was like, who's this Steve guy? I don't know who he is. But then when I saw you speak on stage, I was like, dang, I gotta get to know this guy. So I remember after the event, there's a whole group of us that went out, and that's where I kind of got to connect with you and learn from you a little bit. And from there, we kind of exchanged numbers, and we've been buds ever since. We've gone out to lunch, had coffee. We've done a lot of things, and it's been great because you only live right down the road from me, really. So
exactly. And I'm always telling people, Mark, the power of going to these live events and these conferences, and because you meet such amazing people there, because you got a room full of people that are looking to go to the next level, and why not surround yourself with people that are looking to go to the next level? So yeah,
absolutely. Really cool. So one of the things where I want to start with this interview today is I really want people to hear your story, because this is what impacted me when I heard your story, because it's so powerful. Like, you had obviously something very not good happen in your life, and you took that opportunity and you wrote an amazing book called From Prison to Purpose. And I kind of gave it away a little bit, what your story is. But I love your book, and it really shows, as a matter of fact, I have it around here, but it really, your story just resonates, I think, with a lot of people, because a lot of people believe that their past defines who they are. And it really, you've proven that to be completely and utterly wrong, because if your past defined your future, you wouldn't be where you're at right now. So I'd love for you to tell your story a little bit and let these guys hear about it.
Okay, cool. Well, I will give everybody the Reader's Digest version, because I know we don't have all day, right? Grew up in Tampa, Florida, started playing football when I was a little kid. It's what I wanted to do with my life. I was going to be a football player. And at a young age, I had the natural talent, gained additional skill over the years, and was well on my way. I'd worked hard, and everything I'd worked for, bled for, sweated for, cried for was there for the taking. But, one night my senior year in high school, I would make a split-second decision that would literally change the course of my life forever. got invited to go to a high school keg party with some friends and showed up in South Tampa at this beach with a big bonfire, a couple hundred teenagers just partying and drinking what we had no drinking and doing what we had no business doing, at 16 and 17 years old. And we got to this party and we hung out for a little bit, and a fight ensued, and I engaged in that fight. Somebody yelled cops, everybody ran to their cars, and we didn't think anything of it. It was another Friday night, another fight, another party. Like, we had been there before. We had been in those situations, seen those situations before. But this time it would be different, because the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department here in Tampa showed up at my parents' house about 3 days later with a warrant for my arrest. One of the teens that I had hit during the Friday night fight had slipped into a coma. And at that moment, everything changed, bro. My dad took me down to the county jail. He turned me in, and last thing he said to me before I walked through that door was, "Son, just keep your head up, be strong. We're going to get you out of here. We're going to get this figured out." Well, because the young man was in a coma and they didn't know if he was going to live or die, they decided to revoke my bond. So my parents couldn't even bond me out. Here it is, my senior year in high school, and my parents couldn't bond me out. So I sat there in the county jail for about 3 months waiting to find out if this young man was going to live or die. And I called home one day, and my mom answered the phone crying and said, "Son, he came out of the coma. He's going to live." And, Mark, it was the best news I'd ever heard in my life. But when I speak at our high schools and our middle schools, I try to impart on our youth that when we make bad choices in life, there are almost always bad consequences that come along with them. Yep. And for me, those consequences were going to be great. I got, long story short, at 17 years old, for that one swing, that one lapse in judgment, I got sentenced to 10 years in Florida State Prison. Man. And Mark, nothing in life had prepared me for the world that I was entering. Nothing.
Dude, I got goosebumps. You telling me that, man?
Yeah, no, I mean, nothing. My parents, coaches, teachers, like no mentors in my life up until that point had taught me anything that was going to prepare me for prison. I got sent to one of the worst prisons in the state of Florida at the time, and gang violence was daily. Riots were weekly. I fought for my life on numerous occasions. I watched people stabbed to death, beat to death in front of me. It was a far cry from anything I'd ever known or witnessed. And it was about a year into my incarceration, and it was lights out time. And I'd really been in survival mode for that entire first year. And this particular night, the steel door slammed shut on that prison cell, sealing me in for the night. Pitch dark in the cell, couldn't see a foot in front of my face. And this particular night, the weight of the world just came crashing in on me. Like every emotion you could imagine, feelings of hopelessness and helplessness and fear and remorse and regret. I was 1 year into a 10-year sentence. It had been hell. I didn't think I was going to survive the next 9. As these emotions consumed me this particular night, it literally brought me to my knees. And I remember crouching down in the corner of the cell and crying my eyes out. And as I laid there, I felt like my life had no meaning and it had no purpose. Everything I'd worked for, wanted, was gone. And I just felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. And for the first time in my life, Mark, the thought of suicide crossed my mind.
Dang, man.
Because as I sat there in the corner of the cell again, I felt like I had no meaning and no purpose. And in that moment, I remembered something. It was something my granddaddy had told me when I was about 10 years old. We used to spend our summers up at my grandparents in Tallahassee. My grandparents had a lot of property, and for a kid, having all that property was a ton of fun. So we would spend our summers up there. And my grandfather was a Christian, and he was always imparting these words of wisdom on me. And of course, I had my own agenda. I wasn't trying to hear any of that. It was one ear and out the other, right? But one summer he got my attention and he said, "Son, just promise me one thing." And I said, "Yeah, Granddaddy, what is it?" He said, "Promise me that if you're ever at your darkest moment in life and your back's against the wall and you don't feel like you have any way out, Just promise me that you'll drop to your knees immediately and cry out for God. And Mark, I hadn't thought about that statement not once in my life since I was 10 years old until that moment.
Mm.
And all of a sudden it came back to me. And I was there. Darkest moment of my life, back against the wall, no way out. What did I have to lose? So I spun around on my knees and I laid my face on that cold, hard, dirty concrete prison floor, and I cried like I never cried before in my life. And Mark, obviously, I'm not here to preach to anybody, right? Yeah. But when I called out that night, in an instant, everything changed. I realized in that moment that my life did have meaning and that it did have purpose, and that regardless of what I was going through at that moment, I was going to go one day and I was going to do something great with my life, and I was going to make an impact and leave my mark on this world. And I believe that everybody's watching this right now is destined and predestined to do great and amazing things with their lives. And a lot of times we get so caught up in what's not right in our lives, and we get so caught up in going through the motions day to day that we stop searching for that thing that we're here to do.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was a huge eye opener. And I went to sleep that night, and, I slept like a baby for the first time in a year. And it wasn't that night, or it wasn't that night on the beach when I took that swing that really changed the course of my life forever. It was that night in that cell that changed the course of my life forever. It was one of the biggest defining moments in my life.
Incredible, man.
But Mark, even though I made that decision, the gates didn't open up. They didn't come. The guards didn't come rushing in the cell and say, "Hey, good job, Steve. What a great decision. We know that you're well on your way, so we're going to go ahead and let you out."
Yeah.
No, bro. I still had 9 years to complete, and I went into survival mode, and I knew that if I was going to do something good with my life or great with my life, that I needed to develop from the inside out. So I began to eat, sleep, drink every ounce of self-development material that I could get my hands on. I had no idea that one day I would become a motivational speaker. I had no idea that one day I would become a business coach or write books or be doing any of this. I just wanted to develop from the inside out.
Yeah.
I ended up doing about 7 years on that 10-year sentence, got out, went into corporate America, went down that road and learned some amazing things there, and then became an entrepreneur. And it was probably about 5 years ago that I really, even though I was having success, I realized something was missing. And it forced me to go on this mission to figure out what it was that I was here to do. Yeah. And that's when a lot of things happened, obviously, and we're keeping a long story short here today. But a lot of things happened, and God revealed a lot of things to me that really helped me to come to understand what it was that I was supposed to be doing, and with the gifts and the talents that He had given me, and ultimately what my mark was going to be. And so we've been gung-ho ever since, just trying to get out there and inspire and encourage people to figure out what it is that they're here to do and go after it. Yeah. So I know that's a long explanation, but
the thing is, I've heard your story several times. I've even read your book, and every time you tell it, I still get goosebumps, because it's one of those stories that if people really can grasp what happened with you, and to see how your life took a radical change, and obviously I know you attribute so much of your change to God, which is awesome. And I'm not shy about being a Christian myself. Most people know. But, the reality of it is you decided to go to work on you, and sometimes, unfortunately, it happens to all of us. We have to hit absolute rock bottom before we're willing to go, you know what?
Yeah.
I haven't figured this out, and I think I need a little help.
Yeah. Funny how that works, right? We always, we lean into our own understanding, and we just keep going down that direction. And then when that doesn't work, we're like, okay, God,
yeah,
I'll let you take over again.
Yeah. Yeah. Since I'm like driving into a wall constantly, maybe you can help me out here. But
Yeah.
I just, I appreciate it. And just a reminder for everybody watching, this should be, a confirmation for you that, you don't have to have the best past. You don't have to have figured it all out. The fact of the matter is that whoever we are, in God's sight, he sees value in our lives.
Mm.
And whether other people see it or not is absolutely irrelevant. And I know that, in your book, you really, which I highly recommend people check it out. And I think your website is stevehopperspeaks.com is one of them.
Yeah.
And where people can check that out, but it's called From Prison to Purpose. And it really kind of tells your story and the journey that you went on to find your purpose in life. And I think I know that once we find that purpose, it just drives us, and there's no doubt about it. So, you know, this is kind of keying off of what your story is, but when you kind of figured out what your purpose was, okay, and you kind of you finally figured out, where God was putting you and where he wanted to take you in your life. I mean, what was the change in your life? Like, in a sense of how did it change your life drastically? And I know you said just a few years ago, you really found out your purpose, but talk about it a little bit more. Let's talk about that a little bit more, because this is important. And the reason I want to hit on this is because there's many people that they question themselves constantly. Am I on the right path? Am I, they don't really understand, once they tap into that purpose of their life, how it can really, catapult them forward in whatever it is that they're doing, business, personal relationships, spiritual, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think, one of the biggest things is, and it sounds so cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah.
When you find your purpose, it doesn't become work anymore.
Yeah.
You wake up every day and you look forward to doing it. Like I woke up today looking forward to hopping on this Zoom with you and hopefully inspiring some people. Like this is not work to me, bro. And getting on stage is not work to me, and going out and doing the keynotes, it's not work. It's just an absolute blessing because I am walking in that purpose. So not to sound cliche, but I think that's one of the biggest changes that it makes in your life is that you start living for why you're here and not living for just the moment that you're in. So many people are in survival mode right now. They're going through the motions day to day. They're living to pay the bills. Right now, they're living in absolute fear because they've just been going through life, and now all of a sudden life has hit this major brick wall where there is uncertainty and there's confusion, and there's so much clarity that can come right now in this moment, because what it's forcing a lot of people to do, hopefully, is to really take a look at your life. One of our mutual buddies, Cedric Harris, posted something earlier today on Facebook, and it was, yeah. And it had something to do with if you're in a situation right now where you're really hating life, you got to look at your life and wonder, okay, is this not waking you up to maybe you're not doing the right things, or you're not where you should be in your life if you're not enjoying this moment that you're in?
Right.
So, but I would go back, Mark, and I would tell you this. I would tell you one of the biggest life lessons for me in that search and journey to find my purpose was that I had not been sharing my story.
Yeah.
When I got out of prison, I believe the devil had convinced me that sharing my story was a bad thing, that it was going to close doors and it was going to prevent opportunity and it was going to prevent me from being successful. So I was not sharing my story through corporate America, owning my own businesses, becoming an entrepreneur. I was not sharing my story. And it wasn't until I came to that realization that something was missing and I began to ask God, what do you want me to do? Why am I here? And then all of a sudden things started to happen and people wanted me to share my story. And reluctantly, I began to share my story. And when I began to share my real, authentic story is when all the crazy doors began to open. And what happened was I realized that most of the relationships that I had been building out in the business world and in the community they were all superficial
Yeah.
because the relationships that I had, even the business relationships, they didn't know what I had been through. And because of that, because I wasn't sharing my story with them, they weren't sharing their stories with me. And so we had this superficial relationship that wasn't real deep. Okay. It was very surface level because I was giving them the Steve Hopper I thought they wanted to see, and they were giving me the
Right.
version of themselves that they thought I wanted to see.
Yeah.
And it was when I started sharing my story that people started to share theirs. And, it's funny, Mark, because I was thinking about this the other day. I got out of prison in 2001
Hmm.
at 24 years old. I'm 43. Like, you would think at some point, or somebody might say at some point, okay, bro, like, you've been pushing the prison story here for 5 years now, move on.
Yeah.
Like, you've been out since 2001. But no, because the reality is that the main reason that I continue to share this story is because it opens the door for everybody else to share theirs. And when people begin to share their real stories and begin to become authentic and say, you know what, I've made mistakes in my life, I haven't been perfect, but here I am, and I have this desire to be better.
Yeah.
And that's when we all come together and really begin to connect on a much deeper level than we ever have before. So that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned through this, bro.
Well, too, and my good buddy Dave Sharp, we know Dave Sharp,
Yeah.
and one of the things that he always talks about is taking your mess and turning it into a message. And I think a lot of us, we just need to own our mess. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I think the reality of it is we have to just sit back and go, you know what? We all suck in one way or the other. We've had a sucky past. Just be cool with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And understand it and use that as part of your story because people need to hear it.
Right.
People see it because people are out there putting on facades and they're really they're finding how much discontentment it brings. You
Yeah.
know, and it really is. There's a power in being able to go out there and tell, our story. And I personally the first time I heard, like I told you, I've heard your story several times, but I still get goosebumps when I hear it because it's very, very powerful and it's a very good reminder of that. Now, I have another question for you, and this is,
Okay.
from the business standpoint.
Yep.
I could sit here and talk about your story all day, and we could go all into it. But so, as a business person, one of the big drivers for your business has been live events. And right now it's like you've been thrown into this, like because you do live events. I've been, we've done events together right here locally, and I love your events. They're awesome. So now with this whole thing where everything's shut down, so what have you done to adjust here? And I know that we've had some conversation and things like that, but you talk about that for a second.
Yeah. It's, Mark, it's a crazy situation. Obviously, like a lot of people out there, I've taken a hit
Yeah.
from this. And I'm the kind of person where, I truly believe that attitude is a huge deciding factor in how we progress in business and how we progress in life. One of my biggest sources of revenue for my business was live events and going out and doing keynote speeches to large crowds. That has not been available. But, a few years ago, I came to the realization, and I've fought it tooth and nail like a lot of people that are watching us right now. Steve, you've got to get on the internet. You got to start taking some of these messages that you're teaching at these live events and through your workshops and seminars, and you got to get this stuff online. You got to start going online. And I fought it tooth and nail because I didn't understand it totally. And, I'm an extreme extrovert. Like, I feed off of people. Nothing brings me more joy than to be out there hugging people and loving on people and looking them in the eyes and shaking their hand and all of that.
I hear you. I'm the same way, man.
So,
Love it.
sitting behind a computer and looking at a computer screen several hours of the day, to me, it just seemed like I don't care. I'm never doing it. So I fought it tooth and nail. So I'm telling you all that to tell you this is that, when all of this happened, it, I had two choices: to look at it in a negative way or to embrace it as a huge opportunity. And I've decided to embrace it as a huge opportunity to get my messages online. And it was something I had already started working on. But again, I had the safety net, Mark, of the live events, and I
Yep.
had the safety net of the workshops and the keynote speeches. So I didn't go all in on getting Steve Hopper International over the internet the way I could have been.
Yeah.
So it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
So it's not like I woke up and said, all right, we're online now, let's go.
Yeah.
It was something that we have been working towards, and it's something we're continuing to work towards. And you know that because I've called you going, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? Like help a brother out. You know what I mean?
I know. Sometimes I get a text from Steve. He's like, hey, bro, help
Yeah.
me, man. What's going on here?
So, luckily, and this is something I coach all of my speaking clients on is, you know, luckily I, launched a coaching business a few years back. And so I've been coaching people in their businesses, coaching speakers and coaching coaches and how to grow their businesses. And so that's been a blessing to still have that available, because obviously with the technology, we can still do our coaching sessions and accomplish all we want. But taking what I do online has been a big transition and a big shift that's needed. And I looked at it in a very positive way. And I know that when the smoke clears, the beauty of it is that we're going to be able to go back to doing our stuff offline.
Yep.
But we're going to have our online presence as well.
Yeah.
And that's really what we all need to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a change. It's been an adjustment, but I'm so excited about where we're headed and what we're doing. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just so everybody knows too, like, Steve and I have worked together. Steve is actually coaching me on writing a book, which he keeps kicking me in the butt because I'm not doing.
Horrible. No, I'm just kidding.
So I've got
That's because he's spending all of it. That's because he's spending all of his time online, providing all this amazing value to everybody. Like, write the book, bro.
So every once in a while, I'll get a text from Steve like, "Hey, buddy, how's that book coming?" I'm like,
oh, man. Mark, it's funny that you bring up the book because, I've been coaching people on their books for the past couple of years. I've got several published authors under my belt that I've helped publish their books and walked them through the whole process. And up until recently, that was just a private coaching program that had a pretty hefty price tag on it. And it was a one-on-one scenario. And so taking that knowledge and that coaching, we've put it online now. So now we're helping so many people get their books written right now during this quarantine. And it's so exciting to see people just making strides. And we got a private Facebook group set up for the Author Academy. And we have an online course now for the Author Academy. And it's just it's so awesome, man, to see how this situation has forced my hand to open things up to more people. And, you can never see the forest through the trees, bro.
Never. But it's like you're hitting on a really good point, is that sometimes, we look, and this is where, people that learn to see opportunity, because there's people right now that look and all they are doing is filling their head with the crazy news. They're filling their head with all this negativity and fear. But yet if you just train your eye to go, you know what? Sure, there's some crazy stuff going on, but I'm going to focus on how I can come out of this better than when I went in.
Right.
And, you've what you're talking about is that exact thing. You're like, hey, I do live events all the time. But now I got to force myself to grow into, something that I was doing, but now it's time to go full bore on it.
Time to go to the next level, bro.
Yeah, it's time to go to the next level. So it's like you look at this as an opportunity to grow in an area or do something that maybe you weren't, and I think it's awesome, man. And I think that's really a powerful thing for people to know and to understand. And so last question, And I'm sure we could sit here and we could probably talk for freaking
Oh
hours.
yeah, we could do a bunch of these, man. We're gonna do another one. It's gonna be all
We're
about
gonna
you
have
next
to.
time because I'm starting a again,
Yeah.
just being forced to do these really cool things. I'm starting my podcast pretty soon, The Ability to Influence, and you're
Yep.
going to be one of my first guests on that. So
Love
we'll
that.
redo this again soon. We're going to make it
Yeah.
all about you, though.
Absolutely, because it's kind of funny. Like when Steve and I we've gotten together for lunch or something, we'll be sitting there talking. We're like, "Dang man, we got to go. It's been like 2 hours. We just sit there and talk."
Yeah.
And so it's great. But I think the biggest, the last question I want to ask you, and I think this is important, is what advice would you give people right now as we're going through this little pandemic thing? And things are starting to change. Things are going to open slowly, and they're going. But what would be the biggest advice you could give people? If you were standing in front of right now, you're standing in front of the whole internet world. you know.
I would say that sometimes we have to slow down to really see where we're headed.
Yeah.
And most of the time, we don't get that opportunity again because we're so caught up in life and we're so caught up in the day to day and we're so caught up in making the ends meet and running the kids here and running the kids there and just everything that our life is inundated with that keeps us going nonstop on a consistent and regular basis. And we don't ever slow down long enough to really look at what we're doing with our life. Mark, I think about the fact that I've been here 43 years and I look at how quick that 43 years went by. I look at my kids. I got four of them. I got one that's about to be 16. And I was just looking at a home video of her the other day, taking her first steps. And it seemed like it was yesterday, bro. And it's happening so quick. And the next 43 years are going to go by just as quick, if not quicker, as the last 43 did. And then it's over.
Yeah.
Like it's over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like our time is so precious. And I'm going out and I'm seeing more families than I've ever seen in my life riding bikes together.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I'm seeing like so much of stuff that I feel like we as a society had just gotten away from and taken for granted. And so what I would tell everybody right here, right now, is that you have this opportunity to look at your life, to slow down. You're being forced to slow down just a little bit and get back to really what's important.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's really, really important, obviously, for everybody is what your calling is, what you're here to do, why you're here, why you've been blessed with the talents that you have. Take some of this time. Take some of this time to maybe take some of the dreams that you put up on the shelf that have collected dust for God knows how many years. Maybe take some of those off the shelf, look at them again, and say, why did I go away from this?
Yeah.
Why did this not become important to me? And is it still there? And if it is, maybe we start to look at those things and contemplate moving towards some of the things that we let life get in the way of.
Yeah.
So I hope that when we do come out of this quarantine, that when we go back to life, we go back to life differently
Yeah.
than the way we were all approaching it before this all happened.
Yeah.
God in history has destroyed societies because they got so far away from him that he couldn't bring them back.
Yeah.
And I believe that he's slowing us all down right now.
Yeah.
So that he can say, hey, y'all are so far gone in the wrong direction. let's bring it all back into perspective
Yeah.
here.
Couldn't agree more.
And, let's all take advantage of this opportunity that we have.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Absolutely.
So I know I
I
got
love
deep
that,
there
man.
for a minute,
Dude,
bro. But
no.
listen,
You know what, man? This is why I love having you on, man. Like, we're gonna be doing this again. There's no question about it, because so much good stuff. But that's really where it's at, man. This is such a great time to slow down and reflect. One of the things I tell people on a regular basis is, one of the things I like to do every couple months is my wife and I'm like, hey, honey, it's time for me to go spend a weekend at the hotel, where I literally go into the hotel room and I don't come out for the whole weekend. And all I do is, it's like, I need the silence. Like,
Yeah.
I need the time with God to, like, just slow my mind down, get out of the day to day. And man, every time I do it, I come out. These are things that I do to set new goals for myself. These are things that I do to review where I'm at, where I want to go. But the times that I get the most creative ideas, or God drops something on me, is in these quiet times when my mind is quieted down. And I really look at this whole quarantine as that opportunity for us right now.
Yeah.
And so you nailed it, man. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, man. I mean, dude, we've been out of control. I mean, you think about it, bro. You scroll through, just scrolling through your social media and just seeing the divide, and just seeing just the direction that we were headed in.
Yeah.
And, some of that's still there, obviously.
Yeah.
But I do honestly feel like we as a society are moving more in a direction of pulling together. I
Yeah.
know it doesn't seem like that just yet, but I feel, seeing the way people in the community are gravitating to try to help small businesses survive through this time, and
Yeah.
being there and giving to each other and all of this. And I was on Facebook earlier, and one of the real estate organizations here in Tampa was having a drive-through thing where they were providing people in the community with different things that they needed, and they weren't stopping them and saying, "Hey, what's your political affiliation?
Right.
We're not going to give you this toilet paper unless it's this way."
Yeah.
And so I see us as a society as a whole pulling together, loving each other through this. And I really hope that we head back in that direction after this is all over, and not the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely, man. Well, dude, I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate you coming out. And of course, I haven't really made a huge announcement yet, but that I'm moving, and I'll be
know,
talking about
man.
that soon. I know, and I'm kind of used to being real close, to Steve right down the road, but that's going to change, and you guys will be hearing about that soon. But we'll be definitely getting in together here, and that's the great thing about technology, dude. Doesn't matter where we are in the world, we can always do this, So,
Yeah.
I actually saw a stat the other day. Somebody had said before the whole quarantine, Zoom had 10 million users. Now they have 300 million.
Wow.
The whole world is connecting,
That's crazy.
That's a crazy
Yeah,
stat.
that's crazy.
Well, cool, man. I appreciate you. Love you,
Hey,
brother.
Mark, I appreciate you, bro, and God bless all of you guys out there. And let's all stay in touch with each other. And Mark, I'll be getting you on the Ability to Influence podcast here really soon, bro.
Let's do it. I love
All
it.
right.
Appreciate you. Bye, guys.
Awesome.